Hello and welcome to the Move Your Business Forward podcast. These talks are hosted by Rob Boll, founder of Evoke Management and CEO of International Leaders UK. We'll be talking with experts from both these companies about issues that affect SME companies today.
Welcome to this episode of the Move Your Business Forward podcast. I'm here today joined by David Fribbins from Randee. Randee is a grants and R&D tax credit specialist. So David, thanks so much for joining me today. Great to have you here.
Thanks, nice to be here.
Good. So I think the idea of talking today is just to give people a bit of an update in terms of where things are around R&D, tax incentives, and also some grants, because there's been quite a lot of change and there's likely to be more change as well. So just for anyone listening to this, we're talking in September 23. So if anyone complains that this is out of date, it will get out of date, but this will at least give a bit of a theme and something that's going to last us probably till at least the end of this tax year, so April 24. And in the case of the grants, probably beyond that, because they're slightly longer time frame. But there have been some big changes, and we'll share some of the big top tips from that, hopefully. So yeah, as I said, thanks for joining me today, David. I know this is your specialist area and what you enjoy doing, hunting around for these things and helping companies understand what they get. So tax incentives to start with, the R&D piece. Mm-hmm. Can you share a few thoughts as to where that's recently changed to and what people might be thinking or needing to think about those?
Sure. So the big change that is likely to catch people out is that there is now a thing called an additional form. So before you can actually file your amendment or your CT600 with your accounts, you have to now let HMRC know that you're going to make a claim. So the additional form, it's all on the Corporation Tax Gateway. So everyone who runs a business that has access to their gateway can see it. But you now need to give advanced information on actually making a claim. So that's the big change. That came in on the 8th of August. So it wasn't even a change. Yep. It was a mid-year change out of absolutely nowhere. And that's probably the biggest thing that will catch people.
Yeah.
So in terms of what you can claim, how you claim, it's generally the same. The legislation hasn't really changed in terms of what qualifies as R&D. But HMRC have got a slight new focus on that. So whereas before you would have needed to hopefully record your R&D in the format of a technical report saying this is what we did. This is how we meet your criteria. Well, one thing they're now asking for is a key part of that evidence, I think, called benchmarking. So it's particularly looking at where does the technology exist on day one before you started your project, and what were you trying to do that would take it from that place to another. It's not something that's typically come up before, but HMRC have really, really got quite aggressive. And benchmarking seems to be their big hook. That's how they're trying to get people.
Yep.
There are a couple of other changes, like you now have to inform them 6 months after your year end. So you can't wait the 2 years and then make a claim. But the timeline on that is very complicated, depending on what you've done historically and where you are in your current accounting period. It only came into effect in March this year. So unless you have a year end in March 2023, and now would be your 6-month deadline to tell HMRC that you're making a claim.
Right.
So now is the very, very first time that anyone can get caught out by it. But the reality is most people won't get caught by that until way into next year. And they probably would have changed their mind again by then.
Some of this just makes sense, right? Because I think what's happened in the past is people have been told, well, you've probably got R&D, let's have a look, and then go back 2 years. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're doing proper R&D, you know about it, right? It's what you're doing every week, every month. So it shouldn't be something to go back and say, oh, we might have done something 2 years ago. Same with the benchmarking. To me, it's common sense, right? If you're actually making a significant advance, then you should be measuring it against something else. So these changes sound like they're probably going to help the people that are doing things properly or actually doing proper R&D. Just prove they are, because they're probably doing this stuff anyway, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I'd say for companies of a certain size, yes, that's true. You would almost certainly already know about the credit system because you would have naturally grown into it over a period of time. I think really the people that get hurt the most on this are SMEs. And in particular, it's SMEs who haven't got a budget to have gone out and got consultants to come in with this knowledge.
Yeah.
It's business owners that have set up and run things themselves. They've got an accountant, but it's not really an engaged accountant. It's we'll pay you $2.5K a year, you file our accounts, and we won't speak to you for 12 months.
Yeah.
So I think that's the group that will particularly get punished as this. And to be fair, I think that's probably what HMRC's appetite is right now.
Yeah.
I think they are actually, what they want are the big, large corporates all to come to the UK and do their R&D here. What the small business owner does, I don't think they massively care, just as long as they don't get in their way.
Yeah.
Very cynical of me, I know, but that's my general moment of HMRC.
Yeah.
It probably is what people have been doing. The benchmarking element, it's something that you will naturally do on almost every project that you ever run.
Yeah.
But whether or not you record it and how accurate you record it, that's where this is a slight
change. Yeah. Cool.
I think that's where people will get caught.
Anything else change-wise? Are you going through a few things there? Is there anything else that people should be aware of, especially going into this last quarter of 23 and first quarter of 24?
So HMRC have, I mean, this one is more common knowledge. This is a little bit older now, but just to make sure everyone is up to speed. They did hire 100 new inspectors back last year, and they haven't quite finished their training yet, but they are policing the tax credit. So it's now common knowledge. It has been released into the public domain, and HMRC have openly admitted this. They do have untrained staff or staff that have not completed their training handling the inquiries for this particular tax credit. And it's causing quite a few issues because they're misquoting legislation, they're misinterpreting it. Some would say intentionally, some would say that it's accidental, but there are, now is the time really to get a good advisor, just because the easiness of this tax credit has gone. It's now more complicated just from an actual submission standpoint. But when the questions come from HMRC, they are now significantly harder to answer, and the thresholds are now very different. So where before you would have an inspector, they'd sit down with you, they'd discuss things with you, go through looking at where things lie. That doesn't happen anymore. So now it's letter-based. You never get a name. You never know who your inspector is. It's all blind. And if you don't give them the answer that you want, they'll just reject your claim.
Yeah, sure.
And you can take them to court over it, but that's going to cost you money. And that's really where it's at the moment. So having everything in place ready is now very important. Yeah.
No, understood. No, that makes sense. No, and again, it's just the evolution of these things, isn't it? It's more stuff you've got to be on top of, and at some point you've got to make a call. Your business is doing your day-to-day, your special trade. You've got to get advisors in for the right things, right? And try and do it on an affordable basis that it makes sense.
Yeah. Exactly that. Because the penalties are, if you're found to have done things wrong and been careless, the penalties are around 50% of the tax credit. So which is big, you not only have to pay everything back, including any fees you've paid to your advisor, but you have 50% on top of that as your punishment.
Yeah, no, understood. Thank you, Dave. Anything else that you think is worth mentioning on the credits?
I mean, you kind of prefaced this by saying that it will probably be out of date by the time it's even public. The likelihood is that when the next budget comes out, they will probably be revamping the SME credit. So the large company scheme will probably remain untouched. But the SME credit will likely either be abolished or it will be massively restricted so that it looks like the large company credit. So that's probably what's coming, but at the moment that's just under consultation, and it's just it's what has been said. This is what they want to do.
Yeah, I think one of the things here, and you probably back me up on this, is if you're thinking of doing, if you're relying on R&D credit to fund part of your business, which some companies do, I think you've got to have not only the people that are doing the R&D stuff within your business, but have the advice, the consulting, and having a consultative approach with that advisor is constantly going to be talking to you about what these changes mean and when they're going to come in. I think it's very easy to get lost Googling stuff around all this stuff and not really have a clear understanding of what's in date and what isn't. And some of the HMRC stuff that's written is easier to read in some places than it is in others. And I think you can quite quickly get confused. So I think having a consultative approach from an advisor on this is really important to make sure you're doing it as best you can, knowing there's still going to be changes that come through.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things there is to not trust what Google will tell you. The rules are changing so quickly that what was true on, I mean, even if you take a massive company like Forrest Brown, what was true on their website might not be true anymore, but it will still be indexed by Google. You will still be able to find it.
Exactly. So you've just got to be careful and then have proper advice on this if you're going to do it properly.
There is one other change actually that I didn't mention that's quite a biggie. So it used to be that you had to make a decision often whether you were going to go down the SME route or RDEC, the large company route. And often the advice would come back around IP ownership and commercial risk. So it used to be quite well established that if you were being paid a day rate to do work for a company, you'd claim under RDEC. If you had a fixed fee and there was risk involved, that if you didn't do the R&D and it failed, it would be yours. You'd do the SME. That's not the case anymore. So HMRC have changed their wording, and they very, very snidely, I'm going to use that word, avoided an actual common law scenario where it would be written into law that they couldn't do this. They avoided that by not appealing a decision at a tribunal level. So now if you have any kind of subcontracted payment to you as a company to undertake R&D, you now don't qualify for the SME scheme. You have to use RDEC.
Okay.
That's a massive change that will, it's been in place for a while, that one, but I think a lot of people probably still haven't quite heard that.
Yeah.
So that's quite an important change.
No, cool. Okay, well, look, thanks for sharing that, and hopefully those things, well, the way you describe them make sense and get in a way for most people to get their head around and make a decision how they're going to approach these things, including getting advice as well. Cool. So should we talk a little bit about grants? Because grants, are these things that have benefited many companies. Seems like it's gone a bit quiet over the last 6 to 12 months. So I know you're fully aware of what's going on there and what the outlook looks for the probably next 2-3 years, right? I'd imagine. Yeah. So do you want to share some thoughts on that, which might be relevant to SMEs?
Yeah, sure. So this isn't innovate funding or smart funding. We're talking particularly around small grants, anything between £2,000 and £20,000.
Yep.
So this is a de minimis state aid is what it's known as. We've only recently, this is March 2023, run out of European funding. So although we left the EU a couple of years ago, the funding cycles are longer term, and we were still receiving European state aid. So local businesses, most people have heard of a local enterprise zone, an LEP, but probably don't know what that means. But a very established process is that across Europe, you throw money at local areas and they target interventions to make the area more prosperous.
Yeah.
And that often translates to small grants for small local businesses to invest in bringing on specialists and taking on projects to try and grow their business, increase their revenues, and then pay more corporation tax, because everything comes back to paying more tax. It was a very established process that ran out this year. And something else everybody's probably heard is the Levelling Up Agenda and UK Shared Prosperity Fund. That's the UK's replacement. So that's the post-Brexit funding landscape, not just for businesses. It covers all kinds of things, but business is one element of that. The main change is it's no longer broken down by local enterprise zones, which is normally like a borough or a total area. It's now local authority led. So every local authority bids for a certain amount of money from central government to say, these are your 5 objectives, one being business and innovation. We would like X amount of money and we would like to spend it by giving away these grants. The problem with that is local authorities have never done it before. So there's no established process or track record. it means changing the entire subsidy basis for the UK, which we have done. Again, if anyone involved in fundraising will know that the limits around SEIS and EIS have changed. It's the same type of aid that funds grants.
Yep.
So there's a whole new landscape there. And all of the LEPs that had developed roots in their communities and had these marketing channels to go out to businesses, now it's local authorities' job, and they're pretty poor at engaging with local business.
Yep.
So it's not that the activity has slowed down, it's that it's got quieter in the sense that they just can't make as much noise as they used to.
Yep.
And the pots tend to open and close quite quickly. So you've got a window to go in and get something and then it disappears. So it's all kind of the worst case scenario at the moment. It seems to be what's playing through. There's a pot of money available, but nobody knows that it's available, how they're going to access it, or when they can access it.
So what if anyone listening to this is thinking, great, a 2 to 20k grant would be really useful right now for doing something, what would be your advice in terms of where they go and have a look for these things?
Very first thing would be to jump onto Google, type in the name of the local authority that your office is based in, and the word Shared Prosperity Fund Business Grant.
Yeah.
And just see what comes up. So every local authority will publish this information. It's actually a requirement for them to do that in order to get the funding.
Yeah.
And Google is very good at picking these things up. So it will, as long as you've got that search term, you should be able to find their page on it.
Yeah.
You'll probably then be hit with 10 to 15 pages of almost unreadable gobbledygook. But if there is stuff there that says there is a business grant available for businesses, then call somebody, whatever the number is, whatever the email is, just jump on it and go for it, or call us and we'll do it for you. But yeah, the first thing is to jump on Google and just see your area, Shared Prosperity Fund business grant, and see if there's any documentation on it.
And I guess, your local authority could be either where you're doing work or where you're registered. I'm assuming it could meet both requirements.
So again, each area will have their own rules, and this is a part of the difficulty of not having something that is centralized or established. Some will fund certain activity and not others. It really will be different depending on where you are. But typically, if you've got a registered office in that area, that's going to get you qualified.
And just to be clear, it is all the Shared Prosperity Fund. That's it. Yeah, just Shared Prosperity. That's the main thing people look for.
That's the big one that effectively has replaced ERDF. There will be other small funds available, but they're very, very, very niche. The
big thing here is it's all become very localized. So you've got to just dig around your local kind of authority and see what they've got.
That's it. And there's no central place that you can go and find all this information. It is fully spread out now. Yeah.
Okay. And some of the bigger grants, you mentioned Innovate UK and there's some other ones. I mean, what's the latest update on those, or what people should be looking
at? They just continue to become more competitive. So they are still the golden ticket if you can go and pick up an Innovate grant. So the Innovate is generally call-based. Very, very, very specific. The government have a particular goal, particular aim. There's a pot of money available for a particular company that do that. So at the moment, a lot of it will be around renewables. So it will be battery technology, looking at transition to net zero for different industries, maritime. They're very, very specific calls. So you really need to be the right niche in the right environment at the right time. SMART is their open category. Every 3 months they reopen it, and they're generally slightly smaller grants, up to $500,000 at most, but they are unbelievably competitive. So you will be up against 100 other people for a very small pot of money, and only 3 of you are going to get funded. You now need, on your feedback, they give you scored feedback, which is very helpful, but you typically now need 85% just to get through that round.
No, understood. Well, look, I think that's just been useful for anyone that's wondering what's going on with this stuff to look at. I know we talk regular, David, because you're part of the International Leaders UK community I run, but I think that's a great way to keep in touch with these things, is actually having having some access to an advisor or even a peer-to-peer community where you can go and talk to other businesses and experts like yourself that hang around just to make sure you're up to speed with these things and aware of the changes. If you're going to give one tip to anyone listening to this that, you know, runs an SME business and thinking, yeah, either some tax credit or a grant would be useful, what would you suggest they do?
I think the first thing would be to jump on Google and just take a look at what you can find. Generally speaking, the information is very, very particular, and it's normally worded in ways that are really unhelpful unless it's your normal sort of language to be using. But yeah, I'd say first things first, take a quick Google, just see what's out there. And then after that, it would be to get in touch. You could probably get lost for a week trying to work out if you qualify for a £10,000 grant, or you can have a 30-minute phone call and find out within that 30-minute window. It's just knowing what you're looking for. So yeah, I'm going to change my advice. It's call me.
It's a bit of it's going to be a bit of potluck, I think, as these things happen. I'd imagine in time, if these grants keep getting rolled out through local authorities, some will get better and better at doing it, and some are definitely more active and have got more engagement with community as well. I'd imagine London, it's just hugely competitive because it's going to be a lot more.
London just doesn't really get funding.
Yeah.
No, the whole point of these structural funds and regional development funds is to build other places up to be competitive with London.
Yep.
So it's to stop London from just continuing to accelerate away.
Yep.
I mean, you're right. It's a 3-year cycle, and the pots open and close during the 3 years. So each time it should get better, and each time it should get bigger as well, because more money is available each year.
Yeah.
So yeah, it should get better.
Cool. Well, on that positive thought, it should get better. Thank you for joining me today on this, David, and hopefully it's been useful for a couple of people listening. And yeah, as you said, anyone wondering what to do about this or where they should go, pick up the phone, Randee, or potentially reach out and join our leaders community as well to join some other like-minded people there as well. David, I've enjoyed chatting today. Thank you very much, and we'll talk again soon.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like more information about the topics discussed in this podcast, then you can find us on our website at moveyourbusinessforward.com.